Around this time last year, I did a review of 2Melo's Memories of Tokyo To, a well-crafted tribute album that pays homage to the original Jet Set Radio. This time we'll be taking a look at a new tribute album, but for Jet Set Radio Future. It's called 99th Street Bounce, and it stems from the creative mind of DJ Chidow. Chidow has been making music for quite a while. He started experimenting in FL Studio at the age of 5, and would use his talent to remix classic soul and funk tunes. Eventually, Chidow would gravitate towards the sounds of vaporwave and future funk, finding his comfort zone. Chidow's new direction would garner some attention. Some of his bigger collaborators include synth pop duo The System and electronic artist Just X. Here's an example of Chidow's work. With a love for early 2000s music, and obviously an attachment to our favorite Rudies, DJ Chidow decided to create 99th Street Bounce, a future Jet tribute. With the help of his producing partner, Mujiku, the pair have crafted a very interesting project that pays homage to Jet Set Radio Future's dancier tunes. Like I did with the 2Melo review, I'll be comparing 99th Street Bounce to the sounds of JSRF and seeing if it's worth your personal airtime. We'll also use Memories of Tokyo To for comparison because they're both tribute albums to Jet Set Radio, but they're done in very different ways. Let's get started. Right off the bat, I would recommend listening to this as a full album rather than individual tracks. The Bandcamp page shows 12 tracks, with an additional 3 if you purchase the full album. DJ Chidow structured the first half to flow like a DJ set. Each track builds into the next, and it's a very seamless transition. I'm sure most Jet Set Radio Future fans are used to this with the abundance of medleys you hear in the game, and it does show Chidow's attention to detail. In terms of sound design, 99th Street Bounce really does bounce all over the place. The Bandcamp page lists a plethora of genres ranging from hip-hop and house music to nightcore and G-funk. There's also no set type of song either. Chidow will mash up multiple tracks into one piece, then entirely recompose another track, and then finally even make his own sound that's inspired by the JSRF soundtrack. It's a fresh and interesting approach, but what's cool about it is that when Hideki Naganuma created the soundtrack for Jet Set Radio Future, a lot of the tracks were remixes from the original Dreamcast game. Others were entirely new compositions, filled with new samples, and obviously we have some of our favorite licensed tracks of all time. Some of Chidow's material has been revamped for this project. Notable examples include his 2-part Nights into Dreams remix and the track Dreamcaster. 99th Street Bounce is a collection of original tunes, remixes, and mashups, and that helps it to retain the spirit of Jet Set Radio Future. Listening through the album, you can also see what sort of musical elements DJ Chidow prioritizes. That being said, it's definitely a much busier album in terms of instrumentation. This boy loves synth pads, and that's not a bad thing. The way Chidow uses them throughout the album can help create a sort of musical glue. If you listen to the remix of Richard Jacques' What About the Future, you'll get the idea. Side note, this track is my personal favorite.
I have faith that there is a future for us. Here as we are, or somewhere else.
Not all the songs are super busy though. The remixes of Fly Like a Butterfly and Technopathic are brought to a heart-thumping speed, but they aren't changed drastically. Both tracks get some extra drum sampling, a classic drum and bass groove, and a couple extra goodies. Another track I really like is Rain. I'm not sure if it's an original track or a remix, but it's a nice contrast to the rest of the album. Honestly, this album reproduces the essence of Jet Set Radio Future very well, and hats off to DJ Chidow for making it happen. Compared to Memories of Tokyo To, 99th Street Bounce uses a lot of samples. Obviously, series composer Hideki Nakanuma was pretty notorious for filling Jet Set Radio soundtracks with plenty of samples, ranging from old British TV shows to sample records and even hits from bigger artists. A lot of Nakanuma's sample history is easy to find online, and I'm sure it was very helpful for DJ Chidow to craft this tribute album. That being said, some of the samples are pretty filthy. Obviously, Chidow wanted to keep the spirit of JSRF within 99th Street Bounce, and I can appreciate it when it's simply the vocal line from a track like Fly Like a Butterfly. But at other times, it's pretty obvious the sample wasn't ripped in its purest form. Okay, maybe Birthday Cake is not a fair example because I can never decide how I feel about it. With that said, there are times where you'll notice that certain sounds aren't as high quality as everything else. Sometimes that's a stylistic choice, but when you hear it, you hear it. Also, there's this super weird 80s TV voiceover sampled during the second part of the Nights remix, and I'm both confused and intrigued.
You cannot defy your creator. If you refuse to bow to my will, then I have no further need for you. I shall take your mind, your consciousness, and create a new, more obedient soul, and create a new, more obedient soul.
What?
The debate over samples is one that's always going to happen. Even Too Mellow used a fair amount of Jet Set Radio samples in Memories of Tokyo To, but they were just blended a little bit better. Having less emphasis on a bad sample only served to help the songs on 99th Street Bounce. I liked it more when Chidow's original ideas were emphasized because it gave you something new to experience. It built a new layer onto the soundscape that Hideki Naganuma tried to build with the Jet Set Radio soundtracks. Simply put, always pick your samples wisely. Comparing 99th Street Bounce, a future Jet tribute, to Jet Set Radio Future's soundtrack is like comparing mac and cheese recipes. There's an original formula that everyone loves, and so they draw inspiration from that recipe and make their own version. If 99th Street Bounce was mac and cheese, it would have a nice top layer of breadcrumbs, soft macaroni noodles, and a blend of classic cheddar and mozzarella cheese. There's also this weird blend of other stuff like nutmeg and bacon that's good sometimes, and then other times it stands out, but not in a good way. I really need to stop writing this shit when I'm hungry. Obviously it's a joke, but it's meant to show that 99th Street Bounce is a layered project. It tackles the contrast between the JSRF soundtrack and the new sounds of DJ Chidow. It's a spin on a classic. As you dig deeper, you can tell that Chidow appreciates what Naganuma did for Jet Set Radio, styling the majority of the album to play like a DJ medley and borrowed some sounds from early 2000s dance tracks. There's extra little goodies added to the mix as well. Some songs are reimagined in a new way, thrown together with oldies to make something new. Other tracks get a simple facelift, and that's enough to push it into the modern space. Sometimes, Chidow experiments with the ideas that Naganuma brought to the table. When it works well, but when it doesn't, it can be off-putting to the listener. Not all the samples are blended perfectly into the tracks. You can pick out little artifacts in a sample that were meant to be masked by different elements of the song. That being said, it's really not a major detraction from the project. 99th Street Bounce was clearly a labor of love, and it's got enough energy to propel the ideas of Jet Set Radio forward. Thanks for watching this album review for 99th Street Bounce. If you want to pick it up, you can head over to DJ Chidow's Bandcamp page and get it for a pretty reasonable price. If you're short on cash, you can stream the full album, and if you like it a lot, maybe just buy it when you get some money. Depending on how much support there is for the album, there may be a CD or vinyl release at some point, which is pretty cool. Every single link you could ever want will be in the description, including Chidow's social media. But if you're looking for more Jet Set Radio content, I think I might have a couple videos you'll like. With all that said, I'm FalseProof, and I'll see you later.